Do you want to work on this proposal? I widen my eyes when the general manager, who usually pays no attention to me, says something like that to me. I had to warn you. This is a proposal where the company's fate depends on. If you can come up with a perfect proposal, go for it. Does that mean he has faith in me? I nodded at the department manager, who was smiling at me in a rare way. My name is Mike. I'm a 29-year-old company employee. I joined this company after graduating from college, and for the first time in my life, I have someone I can call my best friend. His name is Henry. We were both new hires who happened to sit next to each other at the new hire orientation. I'm often said to be the athletic type with a lot of bravado, but Henry is the complete opposite, with a calm demeanor. At first, I wondered if I would be able to make it in such a big company. Henry and I were assigned to the same department. I took to the seniors, who liked me because of my natural cheerfulness, especially Angie, who was 2 years older than me and my mentor. You're very energetic. I like that, she said, and trained me thoroughly. Unlike me, Henry is a steady type of guy who doesn't flatter his seniors but always listens to what they say. Henry and I often collaborated and gradually started going out for drinks. While some of my peers quit because they thought the work was too hard, Henry and I were doing well. A few months ago, however, the head of our department changed. I was trying to find out what kind of person the new manager was like, but what I found out was that he has a strong dislike for people. He hates me completely. According to Angie, he doesn't like athletic people like me because they are too heated. However, I have no intention of changing my character because I think it's my charm, and I'm going to do my job well and get the department manager's approval. When Angie heard this, she smiled and said, "That's the spirit," to me. Angie said she had worked for the general manager before, but he liked her strangely and she was a little troubled by it. I was doing my job as well as I ever did, but the general manager told me that he didn't like me. "Hey, you over there! Get this done for me!" And he always forced me to do chores. Because of my competitive nature, I was always trying to show off my work to the head of the department so that he would recognize me someday. Henry once asked me why I was appealing so much to the manager. "Well, you want to be recognized, don't you?" Henry laughed at what I said. "Mike, you've got guts." I was more and more motivated by his words. A short time later, I was called in by the manager. "Do you want to work on this proposal?" Surprised by the manager finally approves of me, I say, "I'll do it." When I respond, the manager says to me, "I have to warn you, this is a proposal where the company's fate depends on it," he said. The manager asked me to submit a perfect proposal. I responded with enthusiasm, but the word perfect left me perplexed. However, the manager said he would consult with me if I had any problems, so I was relieved to hear that. The deadline was a month later. I started working on the proposal that day. A while ago, a proposal I had written was well received within the company. At that time, I thought the general manager didn't seem to be amused, but maybe he recognized my achievements and entrusted me with the project. Moreover, I was told that if we succeeded this time, it would be $1 million business, and I felt the weight of responsibility. A few days later, I went to my manager for advice. "Yeah, that sounds fine," he tells me. When I try to ask him a question, "Look it up on your own. I'm busy," he said, and blew me off. It was him who said he would consult with me. I was working late, worrying my head off. Then Henry comes to me. "Don't overwork yourself. I'm here to help." I nodded to his kind words. With the help of Henry, who continued to worry about me, I set a timetable for completing the project. Angie called me halfway through the project and told me that I should be able to meet the deadline. Angie looked over the project and said, "Yeah, it looks good," she told me. 1 week remains before the proposal is due. At that time, I was summoned to the conference room by my manager, who asked me about the progress of my proposal. I handed him a draft of the project. Then he flips through the proposal and starts laughing. I was puzzled. Then he started tearing up the proposal right in front of me. "Your proposal is trash," I muttered to myself as I looked at the torn-up proposal. My manager smirked and laughed. "I knew it'd be impossible for you. I told you at the beginning that the fate of our company depended on this. I told you to come up with the perfect proposal. Do you know what this means now?" He tapped me on the shoulder. I can't believe that someone would treat me like this after I spent every waking moment working on a proposal. Moreover, he said he would consult with me, so I asked him for advice, and yet he never helped me or gave me advice. And then he rips up my nearly finished proposal and throws it away. I was so shocked and I just nodded my head. He didn't even pay attention to me. "I can't finally get rid of you. I hate people like you. Did you really think I asked you to do this because I believed in you? No way! You're fired," he said. I lifted my head when he said those words. "You weren't able to submit a perfect proposal. Do you understand how important this is? It means you cause a loss to the company. You're fired for violating the terms of the agreement." The director told me this and I tried to respond. "But the proposal..." The director laughed off my words. "I've been preparing the proposal for months. I've had my people help me with it. And of course, my proposal is going to be accepted. You should just use up your PTO while you can. I'll tell HR and the section chief. You don't have to call them. Don't do anything unnecessary." I wonder if he had been making arrangements from the beginning to get me fired. I left the conference room with a nod, but it was already past the end of the workday. I packed my things and left the office with my shoulders slumped. I met Angie when I got out of the elevator. "You look unusually gloomy. What's wrong?" She asked me that, and I said in a lethargic tone, "I've been fired," and turned to leave. Angie grabbed my arm and tried to ask me what was going on, so I tried to summarize. Angie got angry with the manager and lost her temper. "It's fine," I said, and went home. Henry called me that night, but I couldn't pick up the phone because I didn't have the energy to talk to him. The next day, I was forced to take a paid day off, so I stayed home. My manager reminded me yesterday not to contact the company, so I couldn't do anything. My best effort to write a proposal went to waste. When I look at the computer screen where I was working on the proposal, I feel like crying. It felt so pathetic that I failed at something like this, and I also wanted to finish the proposal and slam it down. But my heart broke when I realized that not only I had the director never expected much from me in the first place, but that he had assigned me this job just to make me fail. Henry called me again that night, and I managed to pick up the phone and tell him what had happened yesterday, and he told me what had happened today. "The manager told me that you're fired because you violated the terms of the agreement." and the section manager doesn't seem to understand what's going on. So he asked me if I'd been contacted by you. The chief was told the manager not to contact you. On the verge of tears, I say, did I do something to upset him? I didn't think I would get fired. When I said this, Henry responds, about the general manager had fired someone in the past because he didn't like their attitude or something. The employee was forced to resign, but when I asked a senior colleague about it, she told me that he was fired by the department manager. I think he's a relative of one of the directors and has a big attitude because he's a well-connected employee. I see. He was a well-connected employee. I mean, don't the president and the board of directors know about this behavior of the general manager? I say, half in a huff. Then Henry said, I'm sorry, I'll let him know. He says, huh? What is Henry talking about? Henry continued to speak. What? Didn't I tell you? The CEO is my father. Huh? I couldn't hide my surprise at finding this out for the first time since I joined the company. Henry said he thought he told me. I heard that his father worked for the company, but I never heard that he's the CEO. I wondered why the CEO's son was a regular employee of the company. When I said that, Henry replied, I'm the youngest of three brothers, so I don't think I'm going to take over the company, he said. I'd heard he had two older brothers, but I'd never cared about Henry's family. I couldn't hide my shock, even though it wouldn't change my relationship with Henry. Then Henry says, what are you going to do about the proposal? He asked me. I can't do anything. The manager didn't want me to submit a proposal. I say this with resignation, and Henry's voice comes out unusually loud. Is that okay with you, Mike? That doesn't sound like you. That's when I had an epiphany. I knew I couldn't just sit here and rot. If I could at least finish the job, I might be able to get my feelings straightened out. Henry said he had his father's permission. I'll help you, and I'll be responsible for submitting it. I think your proposal was great. There's a need for it, so are you going to do it or not? He presses me. I push myself to finish the proposal. The next day, I went home to finish the proposal. Henry came to my house at night. I opened the door, and to my surprise, Angie was there too. Angie was smiling at me. You're doing something interesting, aren't you? I thought I'd help too. So, I let them both in. It was the weekend and we worked through the night to finish the proposal. Done, I said out loud and gave them both high fives. I'll hold on to this. Henry takes the proposal and puts it in his bag. A few days later, I got a call from HR and my resignation date was set. I would be lying if I said I had no regrets because I had completed my proposal. But I started thinking about making a decision and looking for a new job. On the day of my resignation, I went to work. Soon, it was time to start work, and the phone started ringing everywhere. After a while, the manager came to my desk. I thought he might say something sarcastic again, so I said something before he could open his mouth. I just came here to get my things and to say goodbye. Thank you for having me. I said this to the manager. Then suddenly, he says, It doesn't matter. We're getting a lot of inquiries about your proposal. It's $1 million business. You need to handle this right now. He tells me. I don't know what's going on, so I ask him, and he says that the phone is ringing non-stop. Most of the calls are inquiring about my proposal. Henry gave it to his father, the CEO, and the president gave the okay. So he proposed the project to all the suppliers at once. The general manager didn't know about it, and he's upset because of the inquiries. But that's not my achievement. Henry and Angie helped me make it happen. But isn't he being too cocky? I was getting angry at that thought. But you tore up my proposal, didn't you? All eyes in the office were on me in response to what I said. It's true that you told me to submit a perfect proposal, but even though you said you would consult with me if I had any problems, when I asked you for help, you didn't take me up on it at all. And when I showed you the proposal, you ripped it up and threw it away, saying it was nothing more than garbage. And when I couldn't submit a proposal, you said it was a violation of the terms of the agreement and you fired me. So what are you asking me to do? When I said that, the general manager frowned, but the phone kept ringing, so he asked me again. I don't care about that. Respond to these calls quickly, he said. I snickered like the director did to me. No, I'm fired, so excuse me. I don't feel like helping when you haven't offered me a single apology. With that said, I held my belongings and the manager grabbed me by the arm. Don't be ridiculous. I told you it's $1 million business. It's also my reputation at stake. Deal with it quickly. At that moment, I heard the noise of a camera shutter. Angie is pointing her phone at us. Boss, you're harassing him, Angie says, and the manager hurriedly removes his hand. Then Henry comes in. Sir, please apologize to Mike. I've already reported this incident to the CEO. You won't get to stay as the department manager for long. Hearing this, the manager goes, What's the meaning of this? And screams. I get in between Mike and the manager and say, Did you know that Mike is the son of the CEO? I didn't know either. The general manager's face turned pale as I laughed. So, the rumor about the CEO's son being a regular employee was true? The general manager is surprised, but everyone around him also widens their eyes. Henry says, My colleague was fired by you for no good reason. I wanted him to know the truth, so I reported it to my father, he said. Then there was a commotion. I looked at the door and saw the CEO of the company coming in. The general manager's face is pale. The CEO came in front of me. So you're Mike. Your proposal was terrific. Someone as capable as you shouldn't be getting fired, he tells me. Then I shake my head. I didn't do it alone. I wouldn't have been able to finish the proposal without help from Henry and Angie. In response, the CEO says, I'm rescinding your firing. I hope you will continue to do what you do best, he said, and he urged me to say whatever I wanted to say to the director. I opened my mouth. I accepted to write the proposal because I wanted to be recognized by you. But when I found out that even when you said was a lie, I lost my confidence. No matter how much you didn't like me, you shouldn't have lied to me and tried to set me up. But thanks to my colleagues and seniors, I was able to regain my strength. And you submitted my proposal, right? The fact that my proposal, which you said was garbage, was accepted means that your proposal must have been garbage. The words came out of my mouth unintentionally, but laughter escaped from those around me. The manager's face turned red, but I guess he couldn't yell at me because of the CEO. I'm going to have a talk with you. Please come to the conference room immediately, the CEO said to the general manager. The general manager followed the CEO out with a pale face. Later that day, the general manager was transferred to a different office far away. Henry told me. The reason he didn't like you was probably because Angie was being nice to you, he said. Apparently, he liked Angie, and he didn't like the fact that I talked to Angie a lot. By the way, Angie had been sexually harassed by the manager, and she presented the evidence of sexual harassment, which also led to the manager being transferred. I was even thinking of suing him, Angie said forcefully. The company's opinion of me improved, but I reported to them that I wasn't in it alone, which resulted in increased bonuses for me and Henry, and Angie's promotion to chief of the department. All you need is a good friend and a reliable mentor. I'm working hard again today, and Henry is laughing at me for being so passionate about my job.
Alright, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick? Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, "I'm thirsty." Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. "I don't care what they say, I plan to quit any time," he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look, "To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day." Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. "So, you all get a chance." As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. "Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them." It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. "All right, everyone's presentations are done." "Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something." Nick interrupted me. "There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer." He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. "Still here?" Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. "I'm leaving." I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. "Nick, what's wrong?" Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. "Probably Sam." Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I obediently followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong. Mike, what have you done? Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. I didn't do anything wrong. You're still saying that? Look at him. Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract? Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go. Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him. There's no way he was pushed aside. Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he? I don't remember that part. I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you've failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.